You are watching Powell Press with Senator Bobby Powell Jr. We will be covering all of what you need to know from the 2021 legislative session here in Tallahassee, Florida.
Hello, everyone. I am State Senator Bobby Powell Jr., representing Senate District 30 in Palm Beach County. This is week 9 of the 2021 legislative session, the final week. And boy, do I have some important information to share with you today. On Monday, we started the week with Senate Bill 90, Election Administration. This bill was heard in the Senate. The bill pushes legislation to change Florida's voting and elections process. The bill traveled back and forth between the Senate and the House chambers due to the number of amendments that were passed and put onto the bill in the legislation. But eventually, the Senate sent its final version back to the House, which concluded several provisions. The Senate voted on this bill 23-17, and it passed in the House 77-40. The bill is now on its way to the governor's desk. If signed by the governor, Senate Bill 90 will change election drop boxes, shorten vote-by-mail request time, and require stricter voting measures for the next election cycle. More specifically, vote-by-mail drop boxes will only be able to be used if they're manned and during early voting hours or during the hours of operation for elections. Vote-by-mail ballots will only be allowed to be carried or picked up by immediate family members unless there's a designated caregiver, and those individuals are limited to 2 ballots per person. And additionally, the last part of this horrible piece of legislation indicates that in order for a person to vote by mail, they will have to request a new ballot at the end of every calendar year. Previously, it was at the end of an election cycle, which was 2 years. Now you have to request one every year. Also on Monday, House Bill 7051, Law Enforcement and Correctional Officer Practices, was approved by the House and sent over to the Senate. We had a special Rules Committee meeting to hear this bill, which came back to the floor. This legislation was a bipartisan policing policy that mandates heightened training for law enforcement officers, reforms the use of excessive force, prohibits arresting children under the age of 7, and makes it a little bit harder for some troublesome officers to change jobs without accounting for their past work performance. The legislation in House Bill 7051 is a combination of police reform bills that were originally introduced by the Florida Legislative Black Caucus. Members of the Florida Legislative Black Caucus believe that this is a step in the right direction to bridge more trust between law enforcement, the community, and the stakeholders in the community. As the chairman of the Florida Legislative Black Caucus, we are supportive of this piece of legislation and hoping to push it a little bit further next year. Tuesday was an exciting day in the legislature, as it was the day that the state budget, Senate Bill 2500, was put on the table. As you may or may not know, once the budget is laid on the table, it has to be there for 72 hours before the members of the House and Senate can vote, and then we can actually end session. This year, it was a record-setting budget of $101.5 billion, thanks to some surplus funds sent to the state of Florida directly from Washington, D.C. and our president, Joe Biden. The Florida Constitution, of course, requires that the legislature pass a balanced state budget every year, and this is the only bill that we as legislators are required to pass. Now, with the budget, let me just tell you, there are a lot of items in the budget. You can be happy that $209.2 million is set out for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Yes, some funds were still swept this year, but we've taken a step in the right direction to make sure that not all of the trust funds from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund were swept, creating opportunities for both SAIL, which is the State Apartment Incentive Loan Program, and SHIP, the State Housing Initiative programs, are funded throughout the 67 counties here in the state of Florida. Additionally, there was money put into the budget for raises for state workers. This year's budget will raise state salaries to a minimum of $13 per hour for every state employee. The education budget was set at $26.7 billion. This sets out a lot of funding for education and moves the per student funding allocation to $7,795 per student. This is in the pre-K through 12th grade education silo. There was $5.3 billion put in place for the higher education budget, that is state colleges and universities. Medicaid postpartum care extensions of $239.8 million, and the Healthy Start Mom Care Network increased $22.0 million this year. Also, there was a reduction in optional over-the-counter drug benefit Medicaid services for adults. It's important to note that in the criminal justice budget, it was $5.9 billion. Previously, the budget included a provision to close 4 prisons. This budget does not contain the outright closure of 4 state-operated facilities and reduction of $140 million and 1,500 FTE contemplated in the original Senate Bill 25. However, proviso in this bill does say that the Department of Corrections may develop a comprehensive plan for the consolidation of a state-operated correctional institution. In the Transportation, Tourism, and Economic Development portion of the budget, it was funded at $13.7 billion. Remember, this includes the Department of Transportation Work Program, and for those of you in Palm Beach County, we've specifically got an appropriation set aside for a Transportation Disadvantage Program, and that is for the bus passes. So look out for that. There was a total of $6.7 billion put into the budget for agriculture, environment, and general government. And this includes things like the Right to Farm Act, which was signed into law by the governor this week. This pretty much concludes our summary of the budget, and I'm looking forward to coming down and talking to you all more about it in person. On Wednesday is the first day that Senate Bill 266, Home-Based Businesses, was heard on the Senate floor. We passed the legislation and sent it back to the House. They eventually sent it back to the Senate. This bill forbids counties and municipalities from prohibiting, restricting, regulating, or licensing a home-based business different from other businesses in a local government's jurisdiction. There were many amendments tied to this particular piece of legislation. Eventually, it passed off the Senate floor with a vote of 19 in favor and 18 against. Also, Wednesday began the first day that we started to hear about Senate Bill 1028. Charter schools. This bill was heard on the floor. There were multiple efforts to amend the particular bill to include provisions such as banning transgender students from playing gender-specific athletic sports. This bill was heard on the Senate floor, bounced back to the House, back to the Senate, and eventually it was voted on here in the Senate and passed with a vote of 23-16, a party line vote. The bill is now going to the governor's desk for signature to become law. That is it for the 2021 legislative session. I want to thank you all for coming on this ride with us as we sit here for the first time in the chambers. We finished the COVID-19 2021 legislative session, where it's been very consolidated, but we've been able to bring you a lot of information. With that being said, please like, share, comment, get involved, and catch us back in the district. I am State Senator Bobby Powell Jr. reminding you that a life of service is a life that counts. For Christopher Stubbs and Kirsty Miles here in Tallahassee, along with Diane Andre back in the district, District 30 here, signing off. We'll see you soon.